Celtic Ligers.
Recorded 1st of October 2025.
Sorry, none of that can go in. Hello, this is Gareth Lyons and this is Celtic Ligers, a comedy and politics podcast with an Irish bent, but hey, we talk about international stuff as well, so don't go anywhere. Patreon.com/Celtic Ligers if you want to throw us a bone. I'm putting here and this in at the top because I did the horrible podcast cliche of starting the recording mid-conversation, and usually people would go, "Are we recording?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, that's how we do it here," like they do on the usual cliche of the podcast, like WTF with Mark Maron, Lock the Gates. That's Zainab in the background there. She's a fixture of the podcast, so if you're listening for the first time. But anyway, that didn't happen. I feel the need to jump in at the start here and give an introduction to our guest. You've already read it in the title of the episode, I'm presuming. We're talking a Palestinian filmmaker, Lexi Alexander. She's directed the movie Green Street, as it's known here, or Green Street Hooligans, as it's known in the US, and also my personal favorite, Punisher Warzone, which is probably the best Marvel movie, standing up there next to Spider-Man 2, Iron Man 3 for me. I like Iron Man 3. And Fantastic Four 2 Rise of the Silver Surfer. I like The Silver Surfer. It's written by Mark Frost of Twin Peaks fame.
Oh,
Yes, you did.
oh yeah, that's true.
I like Michael Chiklis as the Thing. So sue me, okay?
What about
Ian Gruffold as Mr. Fantastic. Yes, I also like him, but not because he's good, just because he's Welsh. And also because he speaks fluent Welsh. I saw him on some show when I was flicking. But anyway, we're not talking about Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer. They did fuck over Galactus. We're not talking about that. We're talking about Punisher Warzone with Lisburn's own Ray Stevenson, who's gone to RIP, has gone way too soon. One of the best to ever do it. And we needed a bunch more movies with that guy in them. He elevated every single thing he was in. But playing the most fascist superhero, which is quite a feat. And obviously the film's done with the kind of Verhoeven style irony. I hope that Lexi doesn't mind me saying that. And basically the film, I would call it, somebody has made collected all the clips of McBain from The Simpsons and put them online, as if they're the one film, and they actually kind of stitched together quite well. But if you were like, this wasn't long enough, then just watch the Punisher Warzone, because they literally have a scene that's the equivalent of that Gentleman to Evil, where McBain bursts out of the ice sculpture and starts like mowing down old ladies with pearls. And that was a joke. That was meant to be like, oh, this was funny, wasn't it? It was like, yeah, well, it happened in the Punisher comics, I guess. So now it's happened in the Punisher movie, where like, the wealthy dowager like falls into her soup because Frank Castle is like taking the top of her head clean off. But anyway, I was always interested in this because Lexi, because of her very faithful adaptation of The Punisher, suffered a kind of knock to her career, which was corrected by comedian Patton Oswalt. And I remember seeing her be interviewed on How Did This Get Made, which I would highly recommend people go out and listen to, where she talks more about Punisher Warzone and the process behind making that. And so that kind of tipped me off to her, and I became very interested in her career. And like every now and again, her name would show up in the credits of like Arrow or let me look it up, because I always thought she was directed like Legends of Tomorrow, but then when I was on her IMDb, that wasn't the case. Arrow, Supergirl, Limitless, American Gothic, Taken, the TV series, How to Get Away with Murder, SWAT, LA's Finest, and those are two separate shows. But but I was always like, because of that podcast, I was like, good for her. Yeah, man, she's making it happen, you know? What a great way to make a living, you know? But in recent years, I got to know her for a different thing, which is that she's a Palestinian filmmaker who's been an outspoken advocate for people in the wake of the ongoing genocide in Gaza. And I was surprised to learn that she had correctly gotten fed up of the United States and decided to move to Ireland, Cork no less, which is where I'm based. And so I reached out, asked if she'd come on the podcast, and she graciously gave up her time. So here it is now. Please enjoy. I don't even need to say please enjoy. You will enjoy this conversation with Lexi Alexander. I might hop in for a few inserts in the future to make up for my own shortcomings as a host on certain little bits. She has a movie coming out 9th of October, Absolute Dominion. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well, but just to put that at the top. Okay, here's the conversation.
I'm calling this in. Put your hands behind your back.
In terms of pro-Palestine stuff, I mean, all my neighbors here have Palestine flags, and they have a vigil every Friday that they invite me to, and the postman brings gifts from other people, you know, little Palestine flags and stuff. So it is, in that sense, it really is. I can't complain. This is the first time in my life that I dared to put a Palestine sticker on my car, because I know nothing happened. Nothing will happen to me here because of it. It's the first time I openly wear kufiya. So there's a lot of like great things, but I can also see, you know, it's kind of like a microcosm of what happens in the US and in the world on a bigger level. I can also see how the opposition is already starting and how the government are not necessarily representative of the Irish people and all of that stuff. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, that's a massive relief, because that's one of the James. This comes up on the podcast all the time, but like one story that came to mind was James. You know, you'd be talking to like some American guy, and the guy's like, yeah, and you guys are great on like Palestine. And then he's like, I need you to go back and tell them that we are not great on, it's like the people are great on Palestine. Yeah. But the Irish government, it's incredibly frustrating, because and the 6 months that I was in London, people would be coming up and showing me their phones and be like, oh, I love like Kneecap, and I love like, isn't it great that Ty Hickey did this video and whatever. And it's like, you know, so, and then they would show me clips of like Simon Harris and be like, look how great he is. And I was like, you have no idea, man. Like, he's just, you know, because the thing about the Occupied Territories Bill is that it was, the Occupied Territories Bill, I probably don't need to tell you or people listening. Well, maybe I will, in case like, you know, you're an international person, so people will be listening now. You know?
Yeah, definitely tell them. Yeah.
But the Occupied Territories Bill was started by Senator Francis Black in 2018. And it was essentially to boycott, divest, sanction goods from occupied territories, Israel in Palestine, the Israeli government. And you know, I don't know the politics stuff. You know, I don't watch Schoolhouse Rock or anything. I don't know all that stuff. Okay, what I was trying to remember there is that it was passed through both houses. That's the Dáil and the Seanad, both houses of the Oireachtas. Which is Irish government. If you're listening from the UK, that's the House of Commons and the House of Lords. If you're listening from the States, then that is the Senate and Congress. And so you get the fucking bill, and then you hash it out, and then it's turned into law, just like this bloody song says. And but that's being held up by something called the money message, which I will get to later on in another insert. Back to the conversation. All I know is that it had huge popular support, and it was kind of like just stalled. And the stories that came out afterwards were, one was an interview that I read that I haven't been able to find since, where Alan Shatter was interviewed for like the Jerusalem Post. And he basically was saying, there was people in Israel asking Alan Shatter, like, Alan Shatter was the former Minister for Justice in Ireland, but he's probably like the biggest mainstream Zionist voice in Irish politics, which I think makes him probably the craziest Zionist, as in like it's just that it's such a marginal position in public life in Ireland that you have to be really mental to have this position. And so he is mental. But Alan Shatter was basically just reassuring. He was in Fine Gael. Now he's no longer in Fine Gael. I think he ran as an independent in the last election. And his entire platform was abolishing inheritance tax and Israel, which is, again, bizarre in Ireland. And he didn't win.
Yeah.
But what was it? Anyway, he just reassured them, like, don't worry. I've gotten reassurances from Simon Coveney, who was a Fine Gael minister as well. Fine Gael, one of the main political parties in Ireland. He had reassurances, also from Cork, but he got reassurances that that's not going to happen. The Occupied Territories Bill is not going to keep going. So here is that insert that I also threatened. Did I already say that at the previous insert? I threatened a bunch of inserts. This is another one of them. So I found that article from the Jerusalem Post where Alan Shatter is giving assurances to the Israeli people that the Occupied Territories Bill will not pass, and they attribute it to something called the Money Bill, which is in fact the money message. And because we have international audiences, presumably for an international guest, I thought I would explain what the money message is, because it's quite fascinating and how anti-democratic it is. This is from Social Justice Ireland, that's socialjustice.ie. According to Article 17.2 of the Constitution, no law shall be enacted for the appropriation of revenue or other public monies unless the purpose of the appropriation shall have been recommended to Dáil Éireann by a message from the government signed by the Taoiseach. In other words, bills being passed that require additional spending as a result of their implementation must receive approval for such expenditure from the government of the day. So what that was used for at the time was apparently at least 50 bills presented by the opposition were basically not enacted or didn't progress as a result of the money message, because the money message is like, if it costs the government money, then we can elect not to do it. And that is what they have been using to hold up the Occupied Territories Bill. So Alan Shatter was told this by Simon Coveney. Alan Shatter then told the Jerusalem Post. The reason that this is also interesting and connected to Israel, but also Fine Gael and their cozy relationship to Israel, is because the Ditch, which is a great outlet if anybody wants to follow Irish politics from a left-wing perspective, and they've been doing tireless work as well, talking about the illegal munitions components and otherwise that have been flying through Irish airspace with the Simon Harris, who's the Fine Gael minister for defence, I suppose you could say, or foreign affairs. Does that include defence? I think we do. It used to be Simon Coveney. Yeah, we do. Minister for Defence, Simon Harris. Yeah, he is. He's also the Minister for Foreign Affairs and Trade. So all of this falls entirely under his remit, and he is yet to... So basically what's ended up happening, if anybody wants to know, as far back as the Iraq War, the United States have been landing planes in Shannon Airport in the west of Ireland. And basically, the Irish government has allowed this to happen despite us being a neutral country. And now it's also been revealed that munitions are flying through Irish airspace on their way to Palestine. And the Irish government refuses to check these planes. They basically say, well, the US told us that there's nothing untoward on these planes. And then it's like, okay, do you want to confirm that? And they're like, no. all that to say, another Fine Gael minister who's carrying water for Israel, despite the fact that the Israelis insist that he's anti-Semitic, and also he has received death threats from the Middle East, which is as far as they would go. But I do wonder, you know. Anyway, so yeah, at that time in 2018. Paschal Donohoe, the then Minister for Finance and current Minister for Finance, and also a member of Fine Gael, rang up his Israeli counterpart and reassured them that, don't worry, the Occupied Territories Bill will not be passed because of the money message. The Ditch reported on this. That's on theditch.com. And to my knowledge, there has only been one single time where Paschal Donohoe has actually been asked about this, and it was by Richard Chambers on the Group Chat podcast. And Paschal Donohoe, his response was, oh, that didn't happen. And then they go, well, then, because he didn't have a record of it. And they go, well, why would the Israeli guy have a record of it? And why would he say that this is happening? This happened. And then Paschal Donohoe said, because it would make me look bad, I guess. So he thinks that it's a credible excuse to say that some Israeli counterpart in 2018 thought that it would be damaging for Paschal Donohoe to one day be associated with the genocidal Israeli government. So kept that one in the bag to be reported on by one outlet and no other outlet. And basically intimating that this guy is lying, okay? And there are plenty of examples in Western media where people have been accused of anti-Semitism for far less. Why did this guy say that this happened? I don't know. Might be he's a liar. You know how they are, you know? So anyhow, I just wanted to point that out because, like, Paschal Donohoe didn't even need to say that because Alan Shatter told the fucking Jerusalem Post, you know? And these are all Fine Gael or former Fine Gael ministers who are talking with the Israeli government, reassuring them that the Occupied Territories Bill will not pass. And in looking up this stuff, I found contemporaneous articles where Vradker was also saying, we absolutely cannot allow this bill to pass, okay? But he was saying it because 67% of our business, whatever, a trade is done with the United States, which begs the question, why is the United States, like we all know, but imagine making the argument in the Dáil, no, we can't occupy the Occupied Territories Bill for Israel because it will affect our relationship with the United States. It's like, is that not just mad on its face to say that? And the other thing about the Occupied Territories Bill is it's simply boycott, divest, and sanction for the illegal settlements. Yeah. It's not, as far as I'm aware, it's not Israel. It's just the settlements, which are not recognized under international law. Yeah. And for some reason, this cannot pass. I really talked too long. This insert is too long, and gotta get back to the episode. Lexi's more interested than me. And then when back in 2020, there was the general election. There was this coalition talks where three parties came together, which was the Green Party, the Fine Gael, and Fianna Fáil, which are the two main establishment parties in Ireland, and they. Basically, again, a potted history of them would be either one of them has been in or out of power for the past 100 years. Like there has been no, if any other party has gotten in, it's through a coalition with either of these two parties. So the Greens were negotiating a coalition with them, and one of them was Nessa Horrigan. And so one of the things that was on the docket was to enact the Occupied Territories Bill. And it didn't happen. For whatever reason, it got removed from the plan for government. And Nessa Horrigan was asked about it. And they went, what happened to the Occupied Territories Bill? And she said, Simon Coveney happened to it. Okay. So that is Fine Gael. Fine Gael, Simon Coveney is in Fine Gael. Yeah.
They also then, they had that government. And then the most recent election, a lot of their campaign was run on trying to pass the occupied territories bill.
Yeah.
So they stalled it for an entire government. And
Yeah.
then they said, if you vote us back in, we'll definitely pass it this time.
Well, the other thing that they would say about it is they would go like, well, it's not really fit for purpose because it was made in 2018. It was like, yeah, but like you stalled it for so now we need to go back and sort of like rework it. And the reworking it has amounted to, we're going to remove services. Services are going to be exempt from the Occupied Territories Bill. Yeah.
Which is 99% of basically your business with Israel. Yeah, I think the Irish Examiner had a very interesting article on what actually has turned Ireland into number 2 of all countries of sales with Israel, I think. And so then the Irish Examiner did this kind of breakdown on what actually is it, because people were thinking, we're not buying the dates, we're not buying the apples, we're not buying the tomato. We're like, what is it? And so they broke it down and said it's services. It's because you have all these American companies here, the tech companies, and all these companies order these chips or these Intel, whatever computer techie things, right? And that turns into billions. But what it is, it then becomes Ireland doing business with Israel. And so your bill is basically useless for just the practical physical stuff, because it doesn't matter. You don't have physical products really. You have that tech thing, but basically all those tech companies are saying, well, if you forbid us to buy our Intel stuff or chips or whatever from Israel, we're leaving. And it comes down to, no politician wants to be responsible for this. I'm not 100% sure the Irish people would be all for it, if they were actually presented with it. Because when you talk to them, you hear a lot of this is so interesting to me because there's a, how do I say this in a polite way, but I'm saying it from a Palestinian point of view, there is a colonizer residue in the mind of the Irish, where they are never confident, fully confident in what they actually do. I look at Ireland, I see all these ups and downs, which I think you guys feel more, the Celtic Tiger and the up and down and the rich. But what I see is not only a country one of the few countries who, successfully blocked Brits taking over, right? I mean, you essentially managed, to rise up and resist, and then recovered multiple times. You're not the only country who had economic disasters, but you're one of the few that came back multiple times to the other side. Now for years you have headlines, what do we do with this $8.2 billion plus, right? Yeah. But now there is this kind of codependence of, without the Americans, we are nothing. Without the pharmacy, we are nothing. And I don't see that in the Irish. I see people who invent airlines and incredible food. Like, for example, something the Irish don't know that I constantly tell them is, I grew up in Germany as a Palestinian in Germany, right? And so, which was also not easy, but Aldi and Lidl are 2 big German companies. And then I noticed them coming to the US, and they came all over the world, but they're a successful global company now. Now in the US, do you think they hire local farmers or buy anything local? No way. They, like everybody basically could fuck off, so to say. They don't get it. They took everybody out. They killed the competition. They are not interested in buying local. But somehow the Irish must have insisted on that, because all I see here, and this is the only country that does this, and I always go in the Lidls around the world because I'm always curious. What you see here is we are looking for more Irish local, chocolate makers, honey makers, meat farmers and stuff. Basically, you guys, and I don't know if that was a conscious decision from your government or if it was just the people didn't go when it wasn't food that tasted to them. This is what the cab driver explained to me. They said that those stores opened and they had bad tasting food, so nobody went, so they had to change their food. But I'm not sure if that's true. I feel there must have been some kind of government behind it that said, if we're bringing you in as a chain, as a foreign chain, you have to source locally and support our economy. That seems to make sense to me. And if that happened, that's what I see in the people. In the Irish people, I see people who have suffered. They are telling these tales still. It's not forbidden to tell the tales of what happened. It's in your culture. And they don't want this to happen again, and they have a great, great empathy. And not just for fellow white people, but for everybody who's occupied. And I sense that so much. And so when I see that this massive German chain, they couldn't care less in any other country about sourcing locally, but fully does it here, I can sense that this is how Ireland wants to function. This is, how it should function. But then you see this, like what I call, and I just posted something about this on Blue Sky the other day, this kind of like Americanism that is creeping in here. And as somebody who just moved here from the US, I want to put red signs up on the street and say, fucking stop. Because this is never good. They will kill your unions. You will not have health insurance. You will go to pension at 75 eventually. This is all bad. Everything from the US is bad because, as you can see, it's all about white supremacy, capitalism. Nothing good. But here you can sense with these big companies, now it's like you have a store called Urban Outfitter coming to Cork, buying a thing. It's a bad store. We boycotted that store many times. One of the things is that they appropriated the kefir, and then the minute somebody said they're selling terrorist scarves, they said, "Oh, sorry, we didn't mean to sell terrorist scarves." And this is just one example that isn't a tech company. Obviously, you already have all the tech companies. You have all the pharmacy companies here. Then this kind of lack of confidence, and this is what saddens me, because I can often feel that in Palestinians, right? Much more severe, obviously, because it's still happening there, the colonization. Obviously, now we're in the middle of a genocide. But here I can still sense this residue of like, oh, we really are worthless without other countries helping, which is not true. It's not true. I just learned recently in that great documentary that Colin Farrell narrated.
From That Small Island, The Story of the Irish.
I mean, who knew that Ireland really were the first, basically, teachers that traveled, that universities literally recruited the Irish to open universities and open school and teach them. There's so much talent here that guys don't need the Americans. And I wish I could put that into every Irish head, but it's difficult.
I think the plan for Ireland, like I was watching an interview with our old Taoiseach recently, and he said that he wants Ireland to be at the centre of the world. And sort of what that nearly means is he wants Ireland, they used to be the colonised. His dream is for us to become the colonisers,
Right.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I think when they cozy up to America, I'm not quite saying they're learning how to be colonisers, but unconsciously, like, that's a position that they want to occupy in the future, Being at the heart of the EU, or being at the heart of NATO, or being at the heart of, like, a certain type of geopolitics. It's sort of that mindset of we were colonized and now we want to be on top.
Yeah. That's why you sent a delegation. That was somebody, posted that Ireland sent a delegation to West Sahara, which is occupied, right? But you sent a delegation of Irish people to check the status of the economy here and what you can do. That is a very British thing to do. It's a very American thing to do.
Yeah.
But this is what I can see. You're absolutely right. I think, and the sad part is that I think people who I see who don't want to have anything to do with that, who are so social justice minded, and also, there's other issues, not just Palestine and the rest of the world, which is a great thing that Ireland does that. But when I look around here, and for example, I have a young hairdresser, she drives for an hour to, I don't know exactly why, but she has to drive an hour to go to her job. She barely gets minimum wage. She works every day, drives an hour to her job, right? And cannot afford an apartment anywhere near Cork. She has to live with her parents. That's bad when your headlines are constantly, what do we do with these 8 billion in surplus? You just, and I'm constantly like, well, why aren't the Irish with that extra money doing things for young people so the young people don't leave? So your construction people don't go.
No, we're gonna stop them, the Russians, from destroying our underground sea cables. You know, in case they invade Dalkey tomorrow. That's what we're gonna do with the money. You know, that was like it was just while you were saying all of that, it was reminding it at the start of the week. The presidential race is on here. President in Ireland is like a ceremonial sort of position. Michael D. Higgins has had it for the past 14 years. And
I loved him, and I'm hoping you all vote for this Connolly woman. Yeah. She seems like an Irish person.
Well, yeah, she's like the kind of hopeful successor to this, but she literally is saying out and proud of like, I'm running because of this march to war in Europe that we're getting sort of swept up in. And I'm going to be a kind of pro-neutrality candidate because Ireland has neutral whatever status, I don't know. But we're very proud of the neutrality here. And even when I was growing up, anytime they talked about like the army, you know, to be like, oh, the Ireland's army is great because they go off and they're like peacekeepers, you know. And that's like a very, you know, I don't ever want to be kind of going like, geez, I love a soldier. I was like, I don't love any soldier, you know what I mean, regardless. But I mean, you know, depending, whatever. Freedom fighter's different. But it's that thing where it's, yeah.
But you guys have that reputation. You are peacekeepers, and that's been going on for a long time. And not only that, like the stuff that the US pretends to do, like, oh, you know, we brought all the food to Iraq. No, you stole the gold and destroyed everything. You know, like the stuff that the US pretends it does, the Irish have actually done for many, many years, you know. And I actually don't think of you guys as neutral. I think of you guys as a very important part, you know, especially as somebody who has been occupied, to say, look, this is no fun. And some of us need to stand against that, you know, and especially in the EU, it's an important, and I'm kind of a little bit sad and disappointed that Spain has surpassed Ireland now, with actually being stronger and fighting the EU stronger. And I don't see that in the people. The Irish people, I mean, they're all telling me, even I live in very rural West Cork, right? And lovely people, for 2 years they've been having weekly, you know, demonstrations for Palestine, and they always come up to me and say, we're so disappointed, we can't believe this. And so what I see here, and we've seen this now all over the world, we've just seen Labour in England, the actual party, think that it is genocide, but the head's not. I mean, this is happening everywhere, that the people are not represented. But here it's uniquely interesting, especially for somebody like me who comes here and looks at all these people and say, well, I see, this is what they want. And then I see the government not acting like that. And I also see this rise in right wing, which is very interesting here, because now you have a bunch of young people who try to work hard and buy an apartment, and they can't have an apartment. And all you have to do to start a fire is, well, if all these black people didn't have your apartments, you would have apartments. And that's how it starts. And now I've been here like 6 months, and now once in a while, I can hear, even in somebody like reasonable, that little, well, maybe we shouldn't be taking them all in coming. And you know, it's because, look, if I mean, my hairstyle is not like this, but I would say if I'm a young woman having to drive an hour, can't afford anything, can't go on vacation, her car is broke, you know, can't afford a car, like, and she works really hard and she can't have an appointment, all because this country does not support people, you know. If somebody says, well, they're just coming here and getting everything for free, I don't know if I had the strength to say, you know, oh, you're just starting chaos here. Why is the system not helping me? I had to explain to her that you guys have so much surplus, that it's been in all the headlines, that this was actually the richest country for a couple of years. So the money is there to help, but there's a reason, and that's what I wish the Irish would ask. Why are you not spending this money on our youth? And I'm not saying, you know, spend it on refugees. I'm saying spend it on your youth. Get people housed. There's no reason. I read in the in a paper the other day that the screenwriter who's a university professor is homeless. How the heck does this happen in one of the richest countries? And one so socially conscious, this should not happen here, you know?
Yeah, I think it goes back to that tension where, like you say, the Irish people are pro-Palestine, but then the government aren't. And it's because the people have a sympathy, but then the government are trying to position ourselves closer to the action.
Yeah.
You know? And then they're also treating the
And maybe
Irish
the good people don't want to run. That's how I see here, because how can you have a people that is like 99% pro-Palestine, and then you have all your representatives constantly do stuff that is not
There's a weird,
representative of that at all.
A lot of that
know?
is like the vote, the way people vote, like is in. Well, I don't know. I suppose like Democrat or Republican. It's like, well, I'm a Democrat, so I just vote for the Democratic Party. So there's Fianna Fáilers and there's Fine Gaelers, and there's people who vote. I'm not saying this is the case all over, and I think it's getting less and less each election. But this idea of like, because there was an interview with like, so that Ross Cray is a town where there was an IPAS center. So that's an International Asylum. What does IPAS stand for? International Asylum Processing. Whatever, doesn't matter. The point is, asylum seekers are going to be brought into this hotel, and the people of Ross Cray were literally just outside of it, like screaming at children going into this place. And, Ireland is full, all this sort of stuff. So for the last election, they went and interviewed them and being like, how are you going to be voting? And they were like, fuck Fianna Fáil, we hate Fine Gael, we hate all of these establishment parties and politicians. It's like, well, who are you going to vote for? And it's like, well, the Fianna Fáil candidate, because I know him, and I voted for him. Like, it's just a weird thing where it's like, it doesn't actually, I suppose it's like America now at the moment, where it's like, everybody is just filled with contradictions. It's like, how could you possibly support this? And it's like, it's not even I support this because I believe in it. It's just something entirely different that's informing their decisions. That makes absolutely no sense to me. But, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just sad to see it here. It's like, I feel like the thing why I feel so defeated seeing it here is because this is a small country with incredible people. The spirit of having resisted an occupation, you can sense it everywhere. And, being new here and looking at the environment with eyes of a little bit of a, starstruck tourist, I see all the little, Cork train station has the whole history of who did what. And like, you constantly see it everywhere. And I'm like, hi, this is good. They're celebrating the resistance. And, you're reminded of here. And so you talk about it every day in your house or not, you can sense that everybody knows about it. And, you can sense it in the spirit of the people. And when you see that kind of stuff, that kind of duopoly American bullshit, taking over here, people but just the government doesn't, do anything in the interest of the people. It's depressing to me because it feels like if the Irish can't fight this off, how is everybody else going to fight this off?
That was the thing I was going to say about the presidential debate, because on Monday there was a presidential debate on Virgin Media TV, Virgin Media Tonight. I don't know. Kieran Cuddihy is this kind of. There's a radio station called News Talk, which is kind of like. I want to say it's our closest approximation to something like Fox. Would that be fair to say, James, or is that a bit too far right?
James noticeably on his phone.
They're like kind of.
I think News Talk would be our version of Fox.
That's what I mean.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I get you. Yeah,
Cuddihy hosts a show on News Talk, and then there was a famous like panel show called The Tonight Show on Virgin Media, and Vincent Brown, who was like a stalwart political correspondent, interviewer, I don't know what you'd call him, but he was always like, he's famous now. People go, oh God, you've missed Vincent Brown, So Cuddihy has sort of taken over this role, but now he is like a kind of Piers Morgan style character where the interest is to try and get clips, okay? And so, we're talking about all the tricolours going up and council saying they're going to take them down. Is the tricolour racist? Discuss. And you're just like, that nobody has I didn't see anybody putting up the flags until you said it was an issue, because you're just deliberately trying to antagonize people to like, you know, whip up this sort of hysteria, this culture war shit that you can then talk about. So they have like Catherine Connolly, who's running as an independent with the backing of like all of the left wing and pseudo left wing parties. And then you have Jim Gavin, who's running for Fianna Fáil, and he is not a politician. He used to be a manager of a Gaelic football team, and he also served in the army. So they're also being like, oh, my service in the army. They're getting like really bad. And then they have Heather Humphreys, who she grew up in a border county, and she is Protestant, isn't she? But either way,
Yeah.
her family is kind of associated with the Orange Order, which would be a loyalist unionist group up in the north who would...
Oh, I know about them.
Yeah.
They're the ones that fly the Israel flag all
Oh,
the time.
yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
So now, like, they have the three of them there, and then Cudahy, like, I wrote it down because I was kind of just there, like, rubbing my temple, but, like, the topics ended up being... military, you know, as in like Ireland needs to join the fight. We need to abolish the triple lock and get in there. You know, we can't just let Europe fight our battles. And then the second thing was about the flags. What about the flags? What about the flags? And then the next thing was about he brought up the NFL coming to Dublin, and you're just kind of there thinking like, so now you've talked about war, the flag, and American football, and you're just kind of feeling like. What you're talking about, the Americanization of Ireland, and it's very deliberate because you know, you also asked about like, why isn't anybody having these conversations, and it's because it's like these conversations are being had on like certain social media platforms maybe, but like where everyone gets their information, be like RTE or Virgin Media or any of these mainstream broadcasters, they're very deliberately not talking about it or misrepresenting it when it happens.
I have noticed that,
Yeah.
and I've always wanted to ask somebody about that. I think I did ask somebody about it, but nobody can really give me an answer about it. Because, you know, some of your papers, they have been very clear on Palestine. Like, you know, they've been, you know, again, calling it a genocide ahead of time. I mean, just like the Irish people, you know. And then, you know, when I moved here, and again, I only have now lived here like 6 months. It's actually exactly 6 months today, believe it or not. What date is today?
1st of October.
Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah, I literally arrived here March 1st, so
Okay.
6 months. And so it's been a real journey. But I turn on the TV here, and there's never anything about Palestine ever. You know, and people you can't walk here without somebody having a flag or all the stop signs, and it's in your papers. Every Irish, I mean, I'm a member of 15 Irish groups that immediately clicked me in on Facebook, on WhatsApp, and this and that. I know what the people are talking about every day. In every supermarket, you would never see this in the US, not even in the Muslim neighborhoods. You would see on the counter little, keychains for Palestine. When I went to Dublin, you know, there's flags, Palestine flags everywhere. So I can see what the country does. But then you turn on the TV, there's nothing. And I've been a fan of Gogglebox, right? Gogglebox Ireland.
Oh, really?
And I'm a fan of all the Gogglebox, and I think as a filmmaker, it kind of has to do with the fact that you're really interested in watching people react to when they watch shows. So that's what got me hooked. Now, the British one is often hard for me to watch because, you know, it's Brits, right? And I was aware that even the two Muslim girls would probably never, ever, ever mention the genocide. But Ireland surprised me. This is a show where normal people are supposed to comment on current events. 2 fucking years it took until Palestine came. 2 years, and then it just came up with this bit. Now, and that was just last week. Last week, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, this cannot be. Certainly, it's not authentic. I know that because I like have a random. I had to go to this festival, and they ordered a car service to pick me up. In the car, the whole car is full of Palestine armbands, Palestine. I'm like, did they tell you who I am? I'm like, I don't know. The cab driver from Cork, right? He's like, I don't know who you are. So it just turned out he's pro-Palestine and he's a Celtic fan, right? Yeah. But this is the norm here. So for this show, Gogglebox Ireland, to never mention the genocide for 2 years is So this cannot be authentic. So something is happening here with your TV. Your Irish TV, in my opinion, is not Irish. It's British.
No, you're right there. Sorry.
Yeah, I think there's been say in America or in Europe, there's nearly been a permission now given to criticize Israel. Like, not fully, but, there's sort of a thing of like, oh, we can call it a genocide now, and that's not completely verboten. And that's given the Irish media and establishment permission. So, like, our Taoiseach, Micheál Martin, came out and he said, it can't be business as usual in face of a genocide. He said that last week.
Yeah.
But like,
but again, like 2 years in.
It's been 2 years of business as usual. But now there's been permission given to him to say that.
And
so
also the fact that Kneecap was...
Gogglebox have gotten similar permission, is my point, or RT.
Oh, yeah, I agree. But then, I mean, again, this is hard because I don't want to be one of those, oh, you just moved here, now you're criticizing all of us. This is not...
No, you're welcome to criticize.
I'm just curious, like, obviously, Irish people must see this. You two are not the only ones, or lefties are not the only ones who see this. Everybody, this is so obvious that they must be turning on TV saying, why aren't they mentioning this? Why are people, like, okay with somebody controlling your Irish public TV? This is not normal. It's not normal. Public TV should always represent the people, especially public. And so for no channel to be allowed to talk about genocide when all the people know it's genocide, that's very American, by the way. That is very American. But in America, we don't have public TV. We have Rupert Murdoch stuff.
It's sort of for a different reason. Like, the end result is similar, but in America, there's a lot of money involved. Whereas in Ireland, it has more to do with this sort of cozy relationship between the media, between journalists and politicians. Because the way a lot of journalism functions in Ireland is for a journalist to develop a personal relationship with a politician.
Well, I'd also... I'd add to that as well by saying I also think that they're on the same team. So when it comes to like geopolitics, they're like, when it comes to the tech sector, like for example, when the way they covered Ukraine, like it was like Ryan Tubridy, the Late Late Show, he hosted it at the time, but the Late Late Show was like, what would you call it? Like it's a chat show every Friday night that is kind of like prime time family viewing sort of thing, but like
it's the worst show in Ireland.
It is the worst show in Ireland. I hate it. But like he's on there and he's like, Zelensky, we love you, and like the way the Ukrainians were embraced and coming here. Now they're being completely discarded, but that's another story. The point is that like when they very, very openly supported the Ukrainian people in every single facet of Irish media, the news, primetime debates, primetime just like family viewing, like the Late Late Show, all of that stuff, every single part of it. And then when it came to Palestine, suddenly Kneecap would come on and they're like, you're not allowed to wear that Palestine pin. You're not allowed to talk about this. And then if they do talk about it, then they offer, the Israelis would say this. And it's like, you would never say the Russians would say that. That would never happen. Okay. Any of these. And a lot of it is because they're...
And all of that is surprising to me. This just doesn't fit into, like, you come here and you go like, but this is not the Irish people. Like, this is so wild, because at least in the US you can say that was a very high Zionist, like the American people were very pro-Israel, right? You don't expect that kind of stuff in a country where 99% of people are pro-Palestine and understand what's happening. So you kind of go like, at what point do the Irish see that they are basically ruled by a very small number of people who are not representing them correctly and are not even in situations where it's not about international stuff, but in their own stuff. And, the sense that I get is that the Irish don't really make a fuss unless it goes too far, and then they might actually really go all out, which I also find interesting, But again, the legend is that you're one of the few countries that has resisted successfully. And in Palestine, we learned as children even, right? About the IRA and about why, and that they were just regular people. They were also just, plumbers and doctors and dentists and, normal people. They didn't want to be IRA, but they also didn't want to be colonized by the Brits. And so being a Palestinian, you learn about all of the names and all of the hunger strikes and everything. And it's nice that, people are proud of it here, but I can see that I think the Irish don't want to really go into that state of mind unless it's too painful not to, unless it becomes so bad for them that they're like, fuck this, now we're fighting. And that is a little bit it's just surprising for me that it's kind of like a sleeping dog,
But that point you bring up is interesting because, say, like you have the Republic, which was founded by created by the IRA, through the Rising. And then the 6 counties up in the north got left behind. And the establishment in the Republic have zero interest in the activity in the north.
Yeah.
Even though it's the same struggle. It's a continuation of the same struggle. And it's because I think it's a classic thing in like a post-colonial country where the new country sets up the same framework.
Yeah, exactly. It's a continuation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think James Connolly made the point that if we still have landlords, the British Empire's never left,
Yeah.
So the Irish
You're the second person this week who brings up James Connolly
Really?
to me, which is interesting and just means I have to reread it. But yeah,
and all the government,
it's very true.
Most of the the Dáil sits in Leinster House, which was the house of the Earl of Leinster, whatever.
Yeah.
They nearly physically occupy the space that the British ruling class left.
Yeah.
And they maintain the same relationship with the people.
Yeah.
So just as the British were a small group of people ruling the country, now you have a similar, they're different.
Yeah, I agree. And part of me kind of really wishes for the Irish because, Ireland also, I think the good people in Ireland, those that kind of have the resistant mind and the kind of social justice mind, they don't ever want to get to power because I think, and you have that in common with certain Palestinian leaders, is the reason we often have these bought for, really kind of American nymphs kind of in power in certain places is because, good people who are very social just and very community oriented don't want to get into power because they see what it does and they don't want to. And I see that here very much, like the people that I think, why isn't this person running for something, would never. But, and again, that usually only happens, and this is the sad part about it, it only happens when the country is in a crisis, when the people are in a crisis. Suddenly, people who didn't want to be in the power find themselves in a position where, okay, somebody has to do it because otherwise we're all going to die, right? And you can see that back in history, especially in your history. But I wish that would change a little bit because Ireland doesn't think of itself as important to other nations, but you are so important. I mean, it's not just Palestinians who constantly talk about the Irish, the Irish have a certain standing. And even with this kind of, I would say half as, trying to speak up against the genocide that's happened in the last 2 years in your government, even that was important. I think it was interesting that Spain kind of went the extra mile and surpassed it there, but I'm not sure he would have done that. That government would have done that had there not been the Irish, You can always rely that the Irish, will recognize it. While they didn't say as much as we would have liked to, while they didn't push for sanctions as much as we like to, they also not be caught saying, I don't see a genocide, So it did help, but I think that position, and again, it's a small country, I can see it. I can see that, and that's also the beauty of people here, is that they don't think of themselves as important. But even your peacekeeper in Lebanon, the island is super important in many, many ways. And so I wish there would be a responsibility that's felt by the people to say, this is the history you have, and we are the only white people who are not on that list of, you know, would do horrible things to brown and black people everywhere. So we have empathy not just with Ukraine, but we can see what's happening in Palestine as well. Again, truly the only white country who does that, right? And so we talk about this all the time. This is among Arabs. You'll have this in all kinds of jokes, in all kinds of, you know, that it basically, there's a lot of talk about the only sane white people, right? But that also, I feel, comes with a responsibility. And I feel like the Irish could so much show the world that there's another way. You know, there's another way to be a Western rich white country. For sure. There's a way you actually make the world a better place. And I feel like that's not really happening because all your young kids have to fight for apartments that they can't afford and then move to Australia. And this is another thing. It's just things I didn't expect. You know, I thought I'll come here and I had, you know, like a normal American idiot. I watched Irish shows before. I watched cheap Irish homes. I'm like, here's what I'm going to do. I'll take some residuals and I build these houses. I make them up. I said, this way I can put into the Irish economy. I said, I'll get quickly my citizenship so I never have to pay taxes for the Americans who spend it on weapons to kill my people. I try to quickly become a citizen so I can spend taxes here. We make these derelict houses function. We bring some Palestinians in maybe, or some art people, or make some roommates for writers. None of this is happening because none of this actually, it's great on the show, but you can't find a single builder here that has time within 4 years because they all, you know, emigrated to countries where they can work.
So what was the reason you chose Ireland to move to? I mean, I hear...
Well, to be honest, so I grew up in Germany and I had a European passport. And then this interesting thing happened where myself and 4 other Germans in the film industry that I knew, I don't have a lot to do with the German film industry and I don't even know a lot of Germans. But at that time, I happened to know this group and they said, we're applying for the American citizenship, and the way you can keep your German citizenship is by writing this sentence. So the Germans can decide if they let you keep it or not. And there's a certain sentence that you write which has to do with the economic. I'm at an economical disadvantage if I don't take the American citizenship. So I wrote exactly what these other 4 people wrote. And the only one who was turned down, the only one whose citizenship, if taken away, was mine. And the only difference on all of our papers was that it says my father is from Palestine.
Right.
It was so obvious, it couldn't have been more obvious. Even the other 4 who always say there's no more racism in Germany. But, you know, even they said, oh, you know, and so I was there without, EU passport now. But, you know, I'm an American. I thought I was fairly safe. Then October 7th happened. And I don't know if people realize this, and I don't talk enough about it. But, I mean, it was basically unbearable as a Palestinian filmmaker in Hollywood. I wasn't getting hired, certainly not while speaking out, you know. But even I think if I had been quiet, there would have been no hiring because people knew I was Palestinian and I was outspoken before. So even if I decided, which I would have never, but even if I decided, okay, I'm going to shut up now because of this October 7th thing, there was no hiring me ever. And it was made so clear. And then we started saying, we had this little group in our unions where we said, can we make a statement about peace for all? Not even like stop the genocide. Everything turned down. And this has been going on for 2 years. All of the unions in Hollywood have turned down every single effort to do anything. I can still see the group working. I'm in the WhatsApp group. I'm laughing because they haven't given up. And all they do is blacklist, they get themselves blacklisted. And then it was a matter of like, my people are dying. I see it on my feed every day. I have family there in the West Bank, but, it now affects everywhere. I can't even wear a keffiyeh anywhere. Like I can't go to a, demonstration. Like I can't be safe at an airport. My idiot friends, many friends of mine that I've obviously are ex-friends now, felt completely comfortable voting for somebody who said she wouldn't break from the guy who committed genocide for already a year. And that was a
Harris,
huge
you don't
break
know.
for me between them. And so I said, I can't live here anymore. I literally almost had a nervous breakdown. I said, I can't live here anymore. And, people said, look, I can't go to Germany, which is worse.
Yeah.
You know? So, and not that I would have gone there, because how do I even apply for a visa in the country where half of my family, they probably would have turned me down, even though I'm fluent in German, so it was crazy. And so most of my friends said, look, apply in Ireland. I think they're going to be cool about it. And truly they were. It was one of the easiest visas to get. I made a big point about being Palestinian, which I thought this can't work. But it worked, and it was really kind of touching. And then, you come here after hiding basically the fact that you're Palestinian, because really it became a matter of danger there then, You come here and the neighbor, massive Palestine flag, on no reason. And this is the other weird thing, because it's not kids in the UK. You see a lot of young people. In the US, you see a lot of those. But here it's middle-aged white people, and it kills me, to be honest, because you guys are laughing, and it is. But for me, I think I was bawling the first time. I was in this little town that I love called Skippereen.
Oh, yeah.
And they have this march at 12:30 in front of Aldi, where also their market is, right? And they march, and it's I know it sounds crazy, but for me to see, I'm crying just thinking about it. For me to see that many middle-aged white people march for Palestine just touches me to the bone. And so this is where your country is so unique, and I wish people would understand it, because it's so fucking important, if more white countries would be like that, if they had the compassion to understand that with great privilege, also comes great responsibility. And this is how you use it. You use your privilege to, especially as a middle-aged white person and as a boomer white person, you use your free time to go out and you say, stop killing children. And
I think for people like Gareth and myself, there's a layer of guilt, because like you say, there is Ireland has a unique history regarding colonialism, and the people, and Ireland has quite a good reputation regarding this. You'd heard good things about Ireland, but it really feels like the government and some of the people are turning their back on it, So it's distinct from Germany, where they've never been good on it. We used to be better, and now we're getting worse, and that sort of brings there's a lot of guilt with that, you know what I mean? Well, and so sometimes when we hear people say good things about Ireland, we have this desire to say just overcorrect. Well, that used to be the case, but now it's not. It's getting, our government are dragging their heels and refusing to do the right thing, even though the people are nearly demanding.
Well, when you hear something true like that as well, I was quite, because if somebody's coming up to me and showing me a picture of Simon Harris and saying he's great, I'm like, get away. But when somebody's middle-aged people, until you mentioned that, I didn't realize how abnormal that is. Although in the UK as well, there's
it's so abnormal.
Yeah.
But that just now, when that whole thing happened, and I'm still curious how that happened, because they just came out with Palestine Action, and there's always also how does the information get out? But I'm telling you, and I'm telling you right now, because I have Palestinians are like the Irish, the diaspora is everywhere, right? So we have Palestinians everywhere, just like there's Irish people everywhere from that time. But ours is probably more recent. So I can tell you the situation. We have family chats, and my family chat is 12 countries, right? I can tell you what each country is, and the uniqueness here is that it's not kids, not universities, it is literally, you're the guy who does my, he has to come and change the oil and the heater. He is a pro-Palestine guy, and the postman is a pro-Palestine guy. And it's just like that. The lady who runs the community heritage center sends my postman Pat these stickers that say
Postman Pat.
Palestinian on them for me. You know, like this is so unique because these are all white people. Like in America, I would be hiding from them. You know, I would be, you know, if they would see a Kofi in the car, I would go like this, you know, like, are they going to call the eyes on me or something?
Well, that's the most, those are the most famous.
Like, we have to do more.
Sorry, those are the most famous videos that you see of like Zionist, like it's always an old Zionist woman attacking somebody in a coffee shop for.
And that's what's so unique.
Yeah.
That's what's so unique about your country. But you think in Germany, even now when the protest started, you know, you don't see that age group. You don't see white middle-aged people. And I argue with that on that side of the family. I argue with them. They don't want to know nothing about it, you know. They don't go on the street. And in no country, you know, the Brits only after that Palestine action thing, and I'm still thinking there had to be some kind of Facebook group that just got to the right people, and I'm very proud of them that they did that. But yours have that naturally. And when I talk to some people in the Bantry Palestine Solidarity Club here, and I talk, why are you here? Why are you doing this? They will just say, well, Luke came over and told me the whole story about what's happening there. And so, you know, this couple that is like, you know, maybe in their late 50s, they're like, so we just decided we have to do something. And here they are every Friday, you know, out there with the vigil. And that is unique. And it is this is really kind of a thing that is in Irish people's genes. It's the same with your actors, you know. Your actors were the first ones saying, oh, we don't care. We are raising money for Gaza. We're talking about Gaza. We're going on the flotilla. This didn't happen anywhere else. And so something to be of, and it just so happens right now to be Palestine, but it could be anything else, you know. And I also think that this needs to, you know, this kind of, you know, sense of justice needs to also happen for your own youth, you know, because like your own kids are not getting treated well, and your own young people, you know. And I think it could be so much better. Like if you all have all this extra money, I mean, either kick the Americans out and, you know, govern again without American influence, which I would prefer. But if you're not, at least use the money and do something good. You know, that I would like say, okay, you know, now if you use this money and like, you know, do the basic income for people so that they can be artists and healthy and, you know, get people housing. You have so much room here. Everywhere I go is a house that could be renovated, but you don't even have builders anymore. So it's so much like, you just want to, you know, this is like, I always have this picture of taking Ireland and going like, I love you, but fucking get it together, you know? That's what it is. And it's not the people. It really is that you have, and like you said, it's, and my neighbor, funny enough, said the same thing. He said, it's a government that is still colonized. Our government is still colonized. It's just what you said, James.
I also think there's a weird one when you were talking about like I guess cozying up to America and looking at them and kind of wanting to impress them or be them or whatever. There's another weird thing that happens where, you know, listening to you here of like, oh, I'm getting proud of being Irish again. This long dormant part of my heart, you know, which was like looking at like,
This is what I say on every podcast because I can sense that the Irish, and even the ones in my Solidarity Club, whenever I talk about why I moved here, how I constantly start crying when I see the march and the middle-aged white people. Yeah, every time I talk about it, because I have that picture of skipperine white people in my head walking, I lose it, right? But there's flags everywhere, and, you know, this really, truly is something to be Irish, to be proud about. And I don't know if you know this, but Irish people are generally loved everywhere. Everywhere you go. You say you're Irish? I can't wait to have the Irish passport. I'm hoping I can get a Cork accent, to be honest, because they're the most beloved. Nobody dislikes. The Swiss, who have always been neutral, not so much. People are like, eh. But the Irish are not just, because, you know, there's a lot of like the Bobby Sands stories, there's a lot of like the solidarity started so much earlier. But so it's not just, we stay out of everything. We just stay out of everything. No, there's like,
it's funny that
have been occupied, and we will stand.
Well, Switzerland is such a great example when you think about it, because it's like a neutral state that also launders money for people. You know what I mean? So it's like we're like because you kind of go, it's like why is Ireland have this reputation and Switzerland doesn't? You know?
Yeah. But you also that you are getting there too.
Yeah.
I remember you and I have been chatting a while, and then you came back to me after I posted about eBay, and that was such a unique. It was such a unique experience because I opened a kind of vintage shop with some art director and production designer friends in 2020 when COVID started, because I felt that I was living on a block where almost everybody was in the movie industry, all below the line, which I don't know if the Irish use the same terms, but below the line in Hollywood means, it doesn't mean that they're below the above, but there's on a budget, there's an above the line and below the line. And above the line are usually actors and director and producer, and below the line is the crew, which is a much, much longer list. Again, it's a stupid term. I didn't come up with it. It just describes behind the camera crew usually, and kind of blue collar workers and the talent where that doesn't really come out of the budget. Their money gets negotiated before. It's a whole thing. Anyway, so below the line, as I call them, crew people, film crew people, hardworking film crew people, they were all on my block. One after the other had to leave their place. They couldn't pay rent. It was really tragic what happened, right? Like everywhere with COVID. And so we opened, a lot of the costume designers and production designers, everybody has a little kind of vintage thing on the side. So I said, why don't we open a shop? And I was the only one who had like a corporate, whatever, tax account, because I had a production company. And so they said, well, with you, we can do it, because there was a whole government thing. If they would open a business, that little money that the government give them would be taken away. So they only could do it through me. And what I found out during that time is, as a group, we actually did really well on eBay and Etsy, kind of selling these collectives, vintage things, some things from the movies, but really, frankly, a lot of it was just flipping things. They were great at finding things in thrift stores. I'm a watchmaker. I repair watches and old gadgets. So we kind of all got together, and we ended up making such a successful business out of it that many of us thought, I may not go back to the movie business because it's so ugly there, and this is really great. Yeah. So when I came here, because we had so many Irish orders, I mean, the Irish, I really thought all of you guys are millionaires, what they ordered. And they had, this was not like they ordering from Lexi, because Lexi is a Palestinian in Sukkot. This is strangers. They just came by the shop, right? Both of the shops, there was no Palestine connection on those shops, because you can't do that in the US. And I'm pretty sure none of them knew who we were, to be honest. So we just saw these Irish customers, and they were buying and buying and buying things. But I'm like, why are the Irish buying so many things? And listen, we all had cool stuff, but whether it was a Lakers hat or a vintage Dodgers hat, or it was a vintage Christmas thing, or oddly, a lot of like vintage Catholic stuff, right? Which I'm still confused about why the Irish buy that from the US, but they did. And they were our best customers. And mind you, not only did they pay $30, $40 for something, sometimes if it was a really old Phillies hat, I think they have a favorite team. I forgot
Boston
what it was, but I think there's
I don't know sports. I shouldn't have said anything.
There was one. Yeah, neither. I don't know American sport, but there's one, I think, baseball or football team that actually is owned by the Irish, and there's an Irish connection. It might be the Phillies.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, we would have stuff, an Irish order come in, and they paid $300 not only for the item, but they pay like $150 for the shipping, which I always thought was insane.
Wow.
So based on that information, thinking, wow, the Irish are all rich and they love stuff from the US, because I moved here with basically a group of people, we kind of like basically took our production company to here, and that's how we got the visa, right? So we packed an entire container full of stuff, which cost a lot of money, and said, okay, we'll start in the film business, but we'll do this because the Irish love this shit. We all can use a side hustle, because you never know in the movie industry, and also the Irish industry is industry is very small. And one of my things is that I didn't want to come here with Hollywood credits and take somebody's job, and nobody said this to me. Nobody said, you taking my job. I say this. Like, sometimes there's an infatuation with Hollywood credits, and I didn't want if there's a young female director starting, but then they go with Lexi Alexander because, 20 years ago, I was nominated for an Oscar. Like that would have just felt wrong to me, So I said, I don't want to rely on this. And so that's why we basically said, we'll move this business here. Then the genocide happened, obviously. I mean, we were already in the middle of it, but we're all giving so much, right? We're sending as much as we can. And we all ran out of money at one point and said, got to get this business. We were waiting for the container to arrive, which was on the ocean forever. It took forever for that. It just arrived like a month ago. And as soon as that container came, we all jumped in and started listing stuff like crazy because we thought as soon as we make money, we can be able to donate. We can't do it as a non-profit because we're all on these cultural visas. But if anybody would ever ask us for receipts of how much money we give, they would be shocked. Like we literally, every penny we have as a group goes to people in need in Gaza. And so we said we do it. And then we opened a store on eBay Island. From the beginning, everything that is possible in the US is not possible. We're not even showing our stuff to the Irish people. So it's like the stuff that the Irish bought from us in the US is not visible to them. So they kind of like want the Irish to pay the $150 shipping that they wouldn't have to pay for the same damn hat that we brought specially for them. We couldn't promote the ads. We couldn't, and we kept trying to email them saying, look, we had a successful store in the US. We brought all of our stuff. We want to offer it to the Irish on the Irish side because you can't actually move your ex-store. You have to open a new store if you're in another country. They blocked us in every way until they finally banned us completely. And then they keep writing emails to us in reply, like we're saying, why are we banned, right? And they keep replying in a manner that some of our Irish friends online told us is forbidden here. The EU has laws. Like they can't actually just ban you. They have to tell you why. They have to give you the data, your data. They're ignoring all of that. And so in a weird way now, we are getting treated worse by the Irish arm of an American company. And to me, that's just wild. Yeah. It's wild in so many ways. It's also wild that we thought of the Irish as such a great customers for vintage items. We can't actually reach them. Either that or, and I don't want to think that, they really like buying it in the US for twice as much, which I can't quite imagine. Nobody is that stupid with money, right?
Not even the Irish.
Not even the Irish. There's and it's hard not to, given the stuff that, like, for example, I remember this was a year ago, I think, people trying to set up stuff on Eventbrite, like events for Palestine, would be shut down. Like I don't know. I'm starting to believe in it. I don't know how much I believed in it at the time, but the idea of like shadow banning, where you're kind of like, they suppress the posts and stuff like that. But like Ireland has like this tech sector, which is obviously entirely reliant on both the US and then even by proxy then Israel, if not directly reliant on Israel. And so it's hard not to see something like that happening and not think like there's obviously some motivation behind it in that way, Oh
my God, I thought it was a conspiracy. And then this happened to us. And there's one specific friend in Dublin. She's so Irish. Like, she's like, we're fighting this. We have laws here. This is not the US. Here's the thing. The US didn't do this to us. eBay Ireland did this to us. And eBay Ireland does it because they're like, we can do what the fuck we want. Do you think there's anybody actually interested in using these laws to help somebody who doesn't have 100, like we don't have money for a lawyer. They already used their lawyer to email back to us. I'm in 35 groups, Palestinian family groups and solidarity groups organizing evacuations, fundraisers. I don't have time to fight eBay Ireland, but I'm shocked that they thought I'm coming to a safer place. And the mistake I probably made is announcing a little bit, like I had on the About Us Free Palestine all of that stuff. And boom, we were shut out, and we're not doing much better on Etsy. Even though this time we actually used the American store. Thought we were extra smart because that one you can move, but no visibility here. Now, normally I would say, okay, well, the Irish just don't do a lot of online shopping. But we have had them as customers for 5 years. This is simply not true, And this is very frustrating to me. So I feel like the tech sector is actually dancing its own little dance in the island, and the Irish aren't even realizing it.
No, there's I don't know if you've seen it. Patrick Bresnahan has a book coming out. I think the other guy is Patrick Brody as well. Could have that wrong, but they have a book coming out. I think it's from the bog to the cloud is the name of it. But the idea of this thing with the cloud, we've been obsessed with the idea of tech, where I don't know. I guess like there's certain this kind of idea that you want to prove yourself as a country. I could be very simplistic about this, but tech is the wave of the future. Anything that tech doing is like we want to be on that, and we're going to invest. And that's why since the 1970s, basically, most Western countries, but particularly Ireland, are always like, we're going all in on tech. All the tech is going to save us, and obviously, to quote that great podcast, tech won't save us. It's not going to save us. And if the past 5 years have proved anything, it's that actually they are right-wing overlords in a way that it seems to be unfathomable to people from like 10 years ago. But people in Ireland are only playing catch-up. It's like we're so embedded in that tech thing. Like a good example would be Owen Hayes was a candidate for the Social Democrats. He became a TD. But like as recently as 2018, there was articles where he was boasting about working for Palantir. And people were all like, oh yeah, Peter Thiel is a big tech guy. Tech is good. Or the Collisons, for example. These two tech brothers are like, they started up Stripe. And then, he's photographed in Tel Aviv and talking about how great it is. And it's just like, it's so basically, I think people don't understand. The reason I brought up the bog to the cloud analogy is just even in the title encapsulated in that, the cloud. The cloud doesn't exist. The cloud isn't a big cloud. The cloud is a bunch of physical servers that contain all of the data that belongs to everybody else. And they own it. And we didn't get a say in whether they own it or not. They just own it because nobody realized like how valuable that was, or nobody even cared, like you're saying as well. And now you have stuff like this happening where it's like eBay just gets rid of this store, and it's like, why? Who cares? What are you going to do about it? And then the government are like, well, what can we do about it? They might leave, and you don't want that, do you? And it's like, well, what if I do? What if you just give me that decision? Do you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Yeah.
Right, and by the way, that's what they're doing about everything. I read the other day that now they're complaining about the wages are too high for the Irish workers. If we keep having the wages so high, like it's, and talking about who you should be really mad at in terms of housing is here. This is where all of your builders and all of your resources and all of your water and all of your electricity and this is where it all goes, because these big companies, and then they all have to find, a place to live. But, imagine trying to get the Irish mad at them stealing your housing rather than the brown people who literally have, and by the way, there's so few of them here. Anyway, that the whole idea that you can be mad at all the brown and black people are stealing our shit is just crazy. But that's how it happens, So, it's just, it is. And it's a sad thing because, I do think the Irish are as great as I make them sound. And there's history. I'm not just, talking, and it's not just an emotional reaction for me. There's history of it, right? And there's proof of it. But what I can also see is that, and I can see this in small little things. It's and you have that in common with Arabs, right? Like, if you ask somebody to come and fix your window, and that person might say, okay, I come as soon as possible. And that may be 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and you may have to call 3, 4, 5 times. And there's a little bit of, like, you can't be mad at an Arab for being late, right? And also if an Arab says to you, inshallah, I come, inshallah, it means they're not coming, right? So there's a little bit of that attitude in the Irish. Maybe that's specifically in rural Ireland, but there's a little bit of like, nothing is an emergency, in due time, in due course, like that kind of thing. And I like that because not everybody has to be as fucking, robotic as the Germans or, as the Americans, like if you don't do your job, and 6 hours overtime every day, you're fired. Like I do like the fact that people take care of their own health, right? But when it comes to, and I'm perfectly happy to wait for my internet to get fixed and to wait for my winter to get fixed, because I do love that attitude. But when it comes to you are being slowly taken over by Americanism, and you're getting less and less, and you're being manipulated to believe that it's the two brown people who just moved next door. And this is going to bite you in the ass, because if you look at the news from the US right now, see who is suffering. It's not just the brown and black people. Now everybody's suffering under this. And this is what's happening here. And you kind of want there to be this one time where the Irish, don't just say in due course, where there's a little bit of an urgency. Like, look, and that's what, certainly not me as a foreigner can come in and say, look, people, you have no urgency. This could get really bad. But, I like to point it out because I can see it so clearly. And I also think it's important. But, I'm certainly not the one who can do it.
Yeah.
I think it's people like you, unfortunately, who have to do it.
I'm tired. Just kidding. Well, that's another thing that's been very because there has been a housing crisis as far back as where it started to really pinch was 2013 onwards. But before that, I was a student back in about 2009 until 2013. And then 2013 is when people started talking about the housing crisis. But from about 2009 onwards, when you're a student looking for accommodation, it was incredibly difficult to do in Dublin. But 2013 is where mainstream media started talking about it, because it started affecting, the middle classes, or the people who, normally would be getting out, would be buying houses and getting out there, but now we're not. So I suppose that's why they noticed. But anyway, it's been ongoing all this time, and everybody has been saying these are the things that have been causing it. And the thing that's been most heartbreaking is in the past, basically year and a half, of just seeing how easily people have been like, no, it's black people. And you're like, we've been talking about this for 10 plus years, and yet for some reason now you found a cause that you can get behind, where it's we're saying, no, it's vulture funds coming in, no, it's they're not building enough social housing, no, we need a state construction company, we need a different thinking that's not oriented towards the market. And they're like, no, I'm pretty sure it's a black guy living in a hotel, I'm pretty sure it's a black guy living on a tent behind, on next to a river, it's I was I don't know how to help you sometimes when it's that's what's happening. You just kind of, I don't know. I'm at a point where I'm I don't know whether I can't convince you, because you were so prepared to believe that I don't know how I could have convinced you it was any of these other things,
And I think that is a small part, again, you have just a part that is not very educated, that comes from, it all depends on what environment. I think the majority of Irish don't want to go there, but they also don't want to go to the other way. And this is what's disappointing to me is, here's this country that puts on these vigils and demonstrations, but, for 2 years, which is super, super admirable, but, you need to start running for office and TDs, and you need to start bringing that activism out and fight as if you're being colonized again. That's what it takes, and not just for us. I hope you do it for everybody that's in a genocide occupied, but it's not just for us. It's also for yourself. Because again, this is a colonization of a different kind. And so if your youth is moving away because they can't afford anything, how is that not a crisis, But this is also part of the system, and the US has done this phenomenally well, which is why I call what's happening here Americanism. It's this kind of, it's not quite there. It's not quite so obvious and so bad, and compared to many others, you're still so quite off that you can't really get upset yet, because look at how good we have compared to others, right? But, you constantly there was another one of those tests of, basic income somewhere for the millionth time in an Irish town. Everybody did really well. Everybody did 10 times as much money the year after. Okay, you're the country that should immediately say, let's do it for everybody. You've done the test, you've seen it everywhere else, you've seen it in other countries, but you're now acting just like the Americans, like it's some kind of fucking communism.
That's what I was trying to say as well earlier on about like the kind of the idea of a lot of Irish people would take pride in being like Conor McGregor went to the White House on St. Patrick's Day, and one of the things he said was like, "We're like the US's little brother." And they love the idea of like, we love the idea that we built New York and we did this stuff. But when you put it the other way, it's like, what about the other stuff that you did for yourself and by yourself? Like, why can't people use that to take pride in and kind of as inspiration for some sort of activism? So I just found that interesting, which is sometimes you can get like...
It's funny because I think you guys think of Irish pride as that kind of thing, as like all the fucking idiots who moved to the US and built stuff and now they're like far righters. Whereas I can tell you that the Arab world, and it's not just the Arab world, it's a lot of the, when you go, I've had conversations in Portugal, I've had conversations in France with the Arab community in France, like the Irish, you say Irish, everybody says, oh, you live in Ireland. Yeah. You should see my whole family. It's like, oh, you live in Ireland. Everybody is like, everybody knows that there's social justice here, right? Whether it's on level 10 right now or on level 3, it doesn't matter. That's what you're known for. You're not known for, Joe Biden and McConnell. You are known much more for Bobby Sands and Stills. And also, the images coming out of this country were impressive. But I definitely can see, and this is I think what pains me a little bit. And again, somebody's going to listen to this podcast and say, well, she moves here and then she just bitches about us, which I really don't, because again, I moved here and
no, not at all, not at all.
I don't, because I really don't want to come off like that. It's precisely because I see the love and I see this incredible spirit that's still in the Irish that can kind of see it disappear. Yeah. I can see it being taken over by something else. And oh my God, it just would be such a shame. Like if people become more, like that McConnell guy.
Yeah, McGregor.
Then,
McGregor.
Why we call him McConnell? Conor McGregor, that's his name. Yeah, see, I refuse to remember his name. Yeah, if people become more McGregor, then they become Bobby Sands. That would be tragic, That would be tragic.
And now we talk about Lexi's new film, Absolute Dominion, out 9th of October on various apps. Google them, why don't you? I can't do everything for you. Anyway, here we go.
Okay.
Literally, I refused to promote this movie in the US. Barely did anything for it because it seemed, I wrote a whole essay on this film blog about how difficult it is to promote a movie during a genocide. And I felt like that was my part of promoting the movie. And then the UK release was so much later. And now I'm traveling to Dublin next week to do a couple of interviews. And it's a really hard thing to do, because it's a very light movie. It's basically for kids. It's a martial arts movie. I mean, not kids, but it's got some themes in there. It was also shot during COVID. So there's, this isn't a film that I necessarily say, it's, if you have kids who love martial arts, that's probably something, you can let them watch. But, during a genocide, you felt like, I wish I would have made a documentary that meant something. You don't know this before. And also I always felt that, Palestinians can't just only be activists.
Yes.
We also have to be allowed to be artists. If I had a comedic bone in my body, I probably would have written some comedies, but I don't. But my thing was always kind of fight movies, martial arts, sure. Right? That's how I grew up. And, once this genocide started, it was very difficult to come out, hey, watch this light martial arts movie. And so it's still difficult for me now. But I also realized that every penny I don't make, is basically I can't give. And that's what I do. I help people evacuate from Gaza, we help set them up in different countries. We give to fundraisers, we give to different organizations that we as Palestinians know are on the ground, and so, it just occurred to me, I really wasn't going to do any PR anymore for this, because again, it always feels really weird. But if I'm broke, it doesn't help anybody, and so this is the only income I have, especially since Ireland likes to shut down our eBay shops. So I figured I have to at least mention that it's coming out on Google and Apple TV, and it's called Absolute Dominion.
Yeah, I also have to talk to, there's a group called Out of Frame Cork. They're I think I mentioned them to you before, but there's also run by German, well, you're not German, but a German man.
I'm not German.
But a German man who...
You told me about that you said you know another good German.
Yeah, exactly. One of the only few. But he... I probably shouldn't even be recording this, but I was saying I should mention the thing to you, and he was very excited. So he would say, can I give him your email to get in touch with you? I'm going to cut this out.
Oh yeah, please. I mean, if you know anybody else who wants to talk to me about film stuff in the next few days, this is probably the only time, and I really kind of got myself together and said, I'm gonna do this. And what I always think of is, number one, with the Irish, I can always talk about Palestine as well. I even do it with the English now, with the Brits. And so it's always a good thing. But I also feel like, all of us still have to make a living, This, unfortunately, I'm not one of those serious documentary Palestinian filmmakers. I'm one of those that made Green Street Hooligans and Punisher Warzone. But I also feel, again, like in a perfect world, Palestinians don't all have to be activists.
No, absolutely.
And so, this is kind of how I got myself over with coming out and saying, hey, can you all watch? And here's the thing, you should be boycotting most of Hollywood movies. And this is one movie where, there's barely any white people in it for one. And, it's really a really diverse cast. It's diverse not only in, race and culture. I even got a couple, I didn't get a lot of Arabs into it, but I got a couple of Palestinian thopes into it. So that was probably my one time I was able to squeeze some Palestine flavor into it. It's very, I really paid attention to cast LGBTQ actors and, a couple of disabled actors we had that are very big in the disabled community in Hollywood. This was one, and I'm glad that it may not have been the best film that I've ever made, because it was very challenging during COVID.
Of course.
But at the very least, I was able to do a movie the way I would have made movies if I would have continued in an environment that is not toxic and is not, so exclusive. So I felt like I got at least a little bit of that spirit in.
Amazing. No, I can't wait to see it. All right. Well, that's that then. You heard her. Buy the movie. Support a Palestinian who's supporting Palestinians. What more can you say? Patreon.com/Celtic Ligers if you want to hear more of this. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.